It is time. We've been seeing a lot of great AWS technology in this series up till now, and we haven't really bothered to ask the question, what does that cost? Other than little hints of like, well, that might be more expensive and things like that. So that's what this nugget is here for, is to start discussing the pricing of Amazon Web Services as it is focused on EC2. Now, we will start bleeding into a couple other areas, but you will see billing, and don't take this the wrong way, but you'll see prices all over the place in this series. And that's just because Amazon adopted a pay-for-what-you-use system. You know that you can walk into this paying nothing. As a matter of fact, you get a bunch of free stuff for the first year when you sign up for AWS to kind of immerse yourself into it. But once you exceed that year, or once you get into a lot of the more advanced services or larger services, you'll start just paying on a pay-per-use sort of basis. So let's talk about how that works, and we'll get beyond just EC2 pricing. We'll get into a couple other areas in this. But the main thing that I want to discuss is probably one of the most confusing things when people first get started with running their instances. But one of the most cost-saving features is the difference between spot, reserved, and on-demand pricing. So let's start off with the EC2 pricing models themselves, beginning with on-demand instance pricing. This is where about 99.999% of people begin with AWS instances, because on-demand is the default, and it's the simplest one to understand. You run a server, you pay for it. You turn off the server, you stop paying for it. So there is virtually zero commit to running an on-demand instance. However, that makes it the most expensive one to run of them all. Now, when I say expensive, I might be saying 9 cents an hour, or convert that to whatever international standard you use. And so in America, that's nothing for 9 cents an hour. But can I stop right there and say, you and I really have to get used to thinking in terms of a month basis. You've probably seen those TV commercials or something where they're selling some product, and they're like, for less than a penny a day, you can have this microwave egg maker. I actually bought one of those. That was the last thing I ever bought from a TV infomercial, because it doesn't work to microwave an egg. It just doesn't, no matter what magic product you buy. So they might say, for less than a penny a day, you can have this egg microwaver. And you think, penny a day, that's really cheap. And then you start doing the math, and you're like, okay, times this. Well, maybe a penny a day is cheap, but you get the point, right? You really have to start adding the numbers up. So when you're looking, let me just take you straight to the AWS EC2 pricing page. Now, notice first off, I just go to Google and type in EC2 pricing, or you can see the URL at the top once I squish this down, is EC2/pricing on the AWS website. And this will always be updated to the most recent pricing. You can also go to that AWS Now page. I showed you this in the last nugget, where you can see all the instance types and all that. Right down below is showing all of the cost for those EC2 instances, and I'll expand on those models in a second. So let me jump back here. I was just saying, you got to get in terms of thinking big picture, because I look at this and I'm thinking, let me just scroll down. You mean I could have I don't know what the specs on this server are, but I could have a 32 core, 200 gigs of memory, whatever size server this thing is, for 50 cents an hour? That's insane. Until I actually sit down and go, okay, whoa, wait a sec. So 50 cents an hour times 24 hours a day. Oh, okay. So it's actually costing me $12 a day to run that server. Oh, okay, times 30 days in a month. Okay, now it's starting to be like, oh, okay, it's not just 50 cents, because my mind sees that. This went so far that I had to make an Excel spreadsheet where you just put in a quick formula, right? Cell A1 times put all this multiplication in there. So I could just look at a glance at these servers, because management doesn't think in terms of hourly unless that's how you build your business. If you're going to be running these servers all the time, they're going to think in terms of how much is that costing me monthly, quarterly, yearly basis. And so just creating some quick Excel formulas will do that for you. So these servers, because of their flexibility, because of their zero commitment, are the most expensive ones that you can run. Now, let me also jump back here. These servers depend on, number one, where they are located. Not all regions are created equal. For example, if you go buy a house in California, you know that it's going to be more expensive because of the real estate costs. And notice here, if you get a server in California, I just changed from Virginia to California, notice it went up by, half a cent an hour, which isn't isn't huge, but at the same time, they're just saying, for that data center, because of the increased Californian costs, we have to charge a little bit more on an hourly basis. So location matters, and what you're running on that server matters. You can see Linux, which has zero licensing costs for the operating system itself, is what is that? 6.5 cents an hour. Let's get to. I don't like half cents. They just bother me. So 6 cents an hour in Virginia. Well, if I take that same size server and convert it to Windows, notice it jumps up to 9.1 cents an hour. If half a cent bothered me, that one bothers me even more. That's because Amazon includes all of the licensing costs for Windows. Notice we add SQL Server to it. Bam, it goes from, good grief, it goes from 9.1 cents an hour to 62.9 cents an hour, simply because of the SQL database licensing costs. Okay, hold the phone. Jeremy, are you saying if I use AWS, I have to pay those costs? What if I bought my own version of SQL Server and I got it at a better price than what AWS is billing me there? That's okay. You can totally just get a base Windows instance, pay the Windows usage, and then add your SQL Server licensing on top of that. Well, wait a second, Jeremy. I bought Windows too. I have Windows licenses. I've paid Microsoft for those. I want to pay, essentially for a Linux style instance, but run Windows on it. That's okay. You can create that instance in your own virtualization software, take VMware, and then use the AWS import-export. Take that VM and import it as an AMI image, and now you don't have to pay the Windows licensing because Amazon is saying, we are not your license police. You can upload any kind of image that you want to, and we will assume that you've done your due diligence with licensing. So it matters what kind of software. If you want Amazon to be paying the fees on that, you add to that as well. So that is the on-demand pricing. Now let me jump into what I think could be the most confusing pricing, just because of all the elements that go into it, of the group, and that's going to be the reserved instance pricing. So the flexibility of on-demand is the ability to walk in and walk out and you're done. Think of reserved instance pricing like a gym membership. Here's what I mean. If you, around the corner from my house is the LA Fitness gym membership, and if you walk in there, they will say, well, you are going to pay $8 a day to come to our gym. If you just want to walk in off the street and go to the gym, play some basketball, racquetball, lift some weights, whatever you're going to do, you're going to pay $8 a day. Well, if you multiply that, it's kind of like, good grief, seriously? It's going to be $240 a month to go to that gym? And they will respond, no. If you pay monthly for our gym, then we will actually lower that to, I don't know, obviously I don't go there, $2 a day, where that's going to end up dropping your cost to $60 a month. But if you commit for a year, if you pay the year up front, then we'll actually drop you to $1 a day. And you get the idea, right? The longer you commit for in your gym membership, the better pricing you end up getting. That's the reserved instance. On-demand has the highest price because it is the easiest to walk away from. That's why most people start there until they're sure they want to go with AWS for a long-term solution, at which point they will start buying reserved instance pricing. What this does is lock you in. You will commit. Here's your 2 commit points, right? You can commit for 1 year or 3 years. There's no 2-year option at this time, but 1 year or 3 year, and you will pay a flat upfront cost in exchange, most of the time, and I'll explain this as we break it down, but in exchange for your flat one-time cost, they will give you a lower hourly rate for running your server. So you commit to that server for a year. So let me put a little more around what commit means. It means, first off, you commit for a year. Second off, you commit to that server. You actually buy into a certain server type. So you remember we looked at the EC2 instances right here, and we've got small, medium, large, and all that kind of thing. So when you reserve an instance, you're going to say, I will take that large server in that region, in, let's just say, North California, North Cal, for a 1-year term. And I will say this is currently what I'm talking about because Amazon is in transition, and that will be one that is in no VPC or it is in VPC. Now, there's a lot around that, so let me talk about that for just a minute. Large, that means you've committed to that instance type. So if that's got 64 gigs of memory, I'm just guessing, and 6 processors on that device, or 20 ECUs, or whatever rating it has, that is the rating that you will keep for whatever that term is. So you will be, I don't want to make it sound this way, but you are stuck with that server type. You can't make it smaller, you can't make it bigger. That is what you have purchased on there. You are stuck with the region, and currently, because the no VPC option is slowly fading away, but you will have to choose whether you want virtual private cloud or no virtual private cloud. I said it and pointed at the wrong ones in the wrong order, but we haven't talked about VPC yet. VPC gives you more control over the network capability. No VPC means Amazon just hands out IP addresses to you. You don't really control it. You don't have as much capabilities on the security of what you can filter, especially outbound from your servers. Now, this option is going away. However, I have met lots of people who have purchased reserved instances in no VPC, and their organization decided to move to virtual private cloud, to move essentially to a completely different infrastructure in the Amazon Web Service platform, and then they're stuck with these reserved instances that they can't move over. Okay, so let me first off throw this in there because it's on the top of my head and I know I'll forget it. There is a marketplace. Amazon has a marketplace, or I mean, you could even go to eBay or wherever you want to go and actually sell your reserved instances. They are transferable. So for instance, let's just say you bought a large instance and you no longer want that platform, or you bought it in no VPC and now you need it in VPC, or you bought it in North Carolina and you want it in North Virginia. What you can do is you can go and sell that reserved instance and transfer it to another user. However, that onus is yours. Otherwise, you are stuck with that instance. Okay. So with that being said, let me add another element to this. One more thing that you commit to with reserved instance pricing is the utilization of that reserved instance. There are 3 categories, and this is probably the most confusing one: light, medium, and heavy utilization reserved instances. Now, this is essentially what you expect your usage of that reserved instance to be. Are you going to use it lightly? Meaning, are you going to only have that instance powered on for a couple hours a day? Are you going to use it on a medium basis? Meaning, you might be running it, maybe like 50% of the day, or you'll have these peaks where you'll run it all day one day and maybe 2 hours the next day, maybe for big rushes of news bulletins that you're posting on a news website or something like that. So that might be a medium utilization reserved instance. Or are you going to be running that instance essentially all the time? That would be a heavy utilization reserved instance. Now, let me first off quantify, because a lot of people get confused when they see this. They're like, okay, so because when you read this from Amazon, it's like, okay, periodic workloads, here and there, not as much processing power, and it starts giving you the feel like, okay, if I buy a light utilization reserved instance versus a heavy one, then the processing power on this one is not as much as the processing power on that one, and that is not true. Remember, when you do a reserved instance, you might say, I want to reserve a large or double large or whatever size instance you're looking at, which includes 6 CPUs and 64 gigs of memory. Please do not ever commit me to what these instances include inside of them. So we decide to go with a large, which includes these quantities. If you do a light utilization, you are getting the exact same server as if you do a heavy reserved instances. This is just usage. How often do you plan to use that instance that contains 6 CPUs and 64 gigabytes of memory? So let me give you a piece right from Amazon's website, which will really help drive this point home. This is your, well, in this case, a 3-year reserved instance percentage savings over on-demand comparison. If you buy a light utilization reserved instance versus on demand, and you use that instance 20% of the time. So in a 20 I can't do the math down to the minutes. In a 24-hour day, you're using it about 5 hours a day. How about that? So 20% of the time, you're gaining 25% savings of what you would have paid if you've gone with on demand. So what do you mean by that, Jeremy? I mean that, let me flip back over here. This is the on-demand pricing for the instances. Let's scroll down to the light reserved instances. So I'm looking at, let's look at large. Large, they're saying I have a upfront cost of 200. Well, actually, we're looking on the other one at 3-year term, right? So let's look at the 3-year term. I have an upfront cost for a large instance of $384. That is non-refundable. You don't get that back. Here you go, Amazon. Take my credit card and run $384 on that. And what you get, at least in a 3-year term, in exchange for that is an hourly price of 10.8 cents an hour. Now again, come back up here to the on-demand instances for large, and you are, I did a large, right? And you are at 20, yeah, 24. The extra zeros throwing me off. 24 cents an hour. So essentially, you're getting an hourly rate of less than half of what you would pay with on demand in exchange for that $384. But what they're saying is right here, if you, for instance, use that 20% of the time, you're getting a cost savings of 25%. If you run that server 40% of the time, you're getting a cost savings of 40% versus on-demand pricing, right? Now you might be looking at this going, well, wait, Jeremy, it seems like your cost savings is going up. Like you can't lose compared to on-demand with a light instance, whereas it looks like with the medium instance you can lose. Well, what they're putting in bold here on this is where you get the best bang for your buck. If you plan on running that server 60% of the time, you can still do a light utilization reserved instance and still save gobs over a standard on-demand pricing, right? But if you were to go within a medium utilization reserved instance, notice you start saving. Now it's kind of like, ooh, 1% here. Well, yeah, but if you plan on using it 60%, how about or more, then you start really saving as you get into the 80% and 100%. So you're saving 59% on a 3-year basis over on demand versus 49% if you would have gone with the light utilization. Now over here on the heavy utilization reserved instance, and you're running it 100% of the time, you actually save 65% because dropping down here, you notice you go. So again, look here, large instance, 3-year term, 10 cents an hour, but you have a $384 upfront cost, right? You know there's a spreadsheet waiting for you when you're doing all this. Same thing, we've got a 3-year term for a heavy utilization reserved instance. You're paying, whoa, look at that. Looks like $1,028 upfront, take my credit card, but then we drop our hourly rate down to 4.6 cents an hour. So again, if you're using this thing all the time, well, I lost it. Other tab. You're going to be saving the most if you're running at 100% of the time if you would have bought a heavy utilization reserved instance compared to a light utilization, or definitely compared to on-demand. I mean, come on, 65% savings over on-demand on 3 years. That's not something to just throw into the wind. If you know you're going to be there, you're going to need that type of server for 3 years, you can get the most savings. Now, the way this works, the other confusing aspect of this, I know, you're kind of like, there's more? The one more thing. When you are going with these light utilization or medium utilization, you will pay the upfront cost and then an hourly cost for that, right? So if you're running the light utilization, you pay that $96 for a small server upfront, and then you pay 2 cents an hour. Same thing if you go with the medium, you'll pay $215 upfront and then pay 1.7 cents an hour. With heavy utilization, the hourly rate is automatically charged for 24 hours a day. Okay, so even if you shut off your server, now with medium and with light, if you shut off the server, you stop paying this hourly rate. Well, with heavy utilization, they give you such an amazing break on the hourly rate. They are saying, we are assuming you're going to be running at least near 100% with this. And because of that, we're going to give you a dirt cheap hourly rate, and you will pay that dirt cheap hourly rate whether that server is on or not. Okay, did you catch that? Now, coming back to this, notice the rate. Oh, wait a sec. I've lost. Oh, I scrolled down a little too far. Right here. The rate is so amazingly cheap that even if you power that server off. Now, let me emphasize, there is no reason to power off a heavy utilization reserved instance because you're not going to get anything back for it. But what Amazon is trying to show here is if you did power that off, you would still save money as long as you kept it on at least 80% of the time. Even though you're paying the hourly rate for running it 100% of the time, you're still saving money over the medium and the light, and of course over the on-demand because of the super cheap rate that they're giving you. Do you see how that? And this is what leads people to believe, oh, I save money if I power it off. You do not save money if you power it off. It's just the rate is so low that's how it works. I'm just sitting here. I'm like, good grief, there's a lot of pieces to reserved instant pricing. So did you catch all that? I know. You may have to rewind and run back through it, but if you caught all that, that is the pieces of the reserved instance. Okay, let's get out of that into the spot instances, which is a little more fun. Now you might be wondering, more fun? That seems like a very odd thing to describe pricing as. Well, it kind of is fun. And the reason I say that is spot pricing and spot instances are a gamble. It's a roll of the dice on an hourly basis. Oh, wait. Did I mention? I think there's something I forgot to mention. If I mention this, please ignore me. But on demand, you are billed on an hourly basis, and what that means is if you power on an instance just to see it boot, like I would do, to be like, wow, check out that double extra large whatever server, just to watch it boot, and you're like, man, that was amazing, and you power it off after 10 minutes, you are still going to be billed for that hour. So you might as well keep that server running as long as you don't forget about it, because it is you don't get. If you use it for 5 minutes and then turn it back off, you don't get some kind of percentage discount on that hour. It's billed for the hour. Okay, spot instances. Now back over here. Spot instances are a gamble, and you're betting on unused Amazon capacity. So Amazon has these data centers with racks and racks and racks and racks of servers. Now, obviously, those things have to be over-provisioned from Amazon's perspective because they have people coming and going all the time, bringing up servers in the cloud. I mean, somebody could just sign up for a free account and start powering on a bunch of different micro instances, and Amazon has to make the bet that they have scaled that data center accordingly. But there's all the time a lot of utilization in a data center that goes unused. So spot instances takes that unused capacity and allows people to bet on it. So let me go back to the Amazon pricing chart. I've scrolled down right on the same page to these spot instances. Now look at this. We've got a small Windows server. Let me just grab that. So what is that? 1.7 cents an hour for a small Windows server in Virginia. Now come back up here for normal pricing, and for Windows you're looking at 9.1 cents an hour. So percentage savings, a lot, right? compared to the two. So you have this extremely low hourly rate that is not guaranteed. So all the time there are people coming in looking at that capacity, and someone might say, well, I'm going to choose to bid 1.7 cents or let's just say 1.8 cents an hour for a small server over there. Amazon looks at it and says, well, it looks like the lowest bidder is 1.7 cents at this time, so they're out of there. So immediately, without notice, without any warning to you, your server is terminated. Gone, and replaced by the higher bidder for that hour. Now, I know some of you are going, wow, I would never use that. Why would anybody use that kind of pricing? Well, think about it. If you've got jobs maybe that just needs raw processing power, I think, now I'm going to go bizarre with you, but anyone remember back to the SETI project? This was the first real distributed computing project that was amazing. I remember this was probably 15 years ago, because it was when I first started teaching. I remember going to all my classrooms and installing this little SETI client on the computers in these classrooms. And what it is, it stands for Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. And so you would install this little client on your computer, and when it's idle, essentially NASA would send you these star charts of the galaxy that have been retrieved from telescopes and all the other stuff. And your computer is looking for anomalies in those star charts and reporting back to NASA to see if they could find aliens. essentially. Now, the project ended up being unsuccessful, as in from one aspect, because they didn't find any aliens, but at the same time, they just demonstrated that worldwide distributing processing is possible. Now you see it all over the place. People are like, hey, install our little client, do Bitcoin mining, it's like you can install this client everywhere. So let's say there's a goofy example, Bitcoin. Anyone heard of that? Electronic currency, unregulated, very risky, and yet has the potential to take over the world in terms of currency, because it's starting to become viable. People are using it to buy and sell and things like. Anyway, one of the ways that you can get bitcoins is you can buy them. I mean, you can actually exchange your country's currency for this online Bitcoin currency, or you can mine them. And what that means is you sacrifice your computer's processor, your CPU, or actually more relevant, a GPU, which they have GPU instances at Amazon, and start mining for Bitcoin. So what you could do is you say, you know what, buying these extra large GPU instances are way too expensive. Like, there's no ROI for mining Bitcoin with my GPU processor, unless I can get those things for, I don't know, 10 cents an hour, or whatever rate you figure based on the mining returns and whatnot. So what you could do is put a bid in, and you can script this and all that and say, you know what, I'm going to bid on a let's just say quadruple extra large GPU instance at, well, it looks like 60 cents an hour, so that'd be a pretty pricey investment, but maybe you figure out that it gives you enough return on Bitcoin to make it profitable for yourself. So that's where the spot instances come in. So if it goes above, we'll say 60 cents an hour, then you can say, okay, cut it off. I don't want to mine anymore because it's no longer profitable for me. And your machines don't really care to be terminated, because all they are these little AMI drone. The image is just a drone that boots up and starts mining for Bitcoin and putting the proceeds inside of your account. So now I just gave you some goofy examples of SETI and Bitcoin, but people are really using this. For example, people are running video websites off of AWS that transcode video all the time. I don't know why I keep going back to Animoto. I just discovered them when I went to that case study. But I'm like, what a great case study, where they have these people submitting these videos online, and these pictures, and it creates videos for them by transcoding it into all these different formats. Well, Animoto could save a ton of coin by bidding on these spot instances when there's a lot of transcoding necessary, where their normal server capacity is overrun. They could bid on these spot instances and bring them up. And I mean, you can write all kinds. I mean, this is totally scriptable. You can do a little programming and say, okay, if spot instance is this, then do it and bring up these machines. I mean, there's all kinds of things that are possible. So this is your gambling scenario, not guaranteed to stay there. And now, remember I said up here, on-demand instance pricing, you commit to an hour. The reason that popped into my mind is with spot instance pricing, you will pay for the hour when you actually reach the hour mark. That means if you get outbid before you reach your hour. So let's say, you bid that 60 cents and you win a quadruple extra large GPU instance. And so 53 minutes into using that, you get outbid and your instance is terminated. You don't have to pay that 60 cents. Right? So could you play a game and try and bid so low that you're guaranteed to? No. I mean, you could try, but the actual, I know it sounds really unstable and like going to Vegas and roll the dice, but believe it or not, spot instance pricing has stayed relatively stable over the past weeks, months, and so on. So when you see those pricing, yes, they do change in small amounts, but it's pretty rare that you see these shoot way up or way down or anything like that. This is relatively what you will pay for. All right, last thing. I know you're like, my brain is fried on pricing, but I just want to give you a flyby view of other service pricing, because what we talked about right there is the cost to run a server in the cloud. Now, let me quantify and say literally run a server in a cloud. Not talking about storing a server in the cloud or communicating to that server in the cloud. So let me give you a view of that other service pricing, and I will tell you this is where that awsnow.info website just shines. It puts it all in one place. So looking right here, we've got the EC2 instances. We saw that just a moment ago. But now look at this. We've got EC2. We've got the Linux instances showing, on demand 1 year and all that. Actually not part of what I was going to talk about, but look at this. They actually have a cost estimator to do some of the spreadsheet work for you. They say, based on the region, what kind of instance are you trying to run? What's your operating system? And you can say, okay, if I run this instance for 30.5 days a month and run it 24 hours a day or this many a year, then on demand it's going to cost me $15.99 a year. If I did a reserved instance, light utilization, it's only going to cost me $11.75 a year. I'll actually break even at 2.9 months into that. So you can think, okay, if I'm going to be running this longer than that, I really want to consider a reserved instance rather than using on-demand pricing. You can see medium, heavy, the total yearly cost, and how much you're going to break even on your upfront costs of purchasing that unit. So you can see, coming down to the 3-year costs and all that. So what a great calculator they give you right up there to put it. Whoa, hello, to put it into. Where are we? To put it into reality on those. Now, but let's drop down even more. EBS, Elastic Block Storage. So if you want permanent storage, remember we talked in the last nugget about ephemeral versus EBS storage. Ephemeral doesn't cost you anything to store your server because it's only running temporarily on the server. Once you turn your instance off, it's deleted from the server. But if you want permanent storage, Elastic Block Store, now you're paying, at least in Ireland, 10 cents per gigabyte for that storage. In North Virginia, did I say 10? I meant 11 cents per gigabyte. North Virginia, you're down to 10. Oregon, you're at 10. I don't even know how to say that, but 19 cents per gigabyte. So you can see, and then, this is getting into stuff we haven't talked about yet, like provisioned IOPS and so on. Even have a little limitations tab of what are the soft limits, what are the, just kind of notes about all of that. So that's for storing your hard drive if you want to do that. Elastic IP addresses. Again, it's difficult to talk about all this because we haven't covered it, but if you want a static public IP address for your instance, for one of them, it's free. They'll include that. If you want additional ones, they're going to charge you half a cent per hour. If you take that Elastic IP and detach it from your instance and just have it sitting there, not in use, they're going to charge you half a cent per hour. Now you can just drop down this. Now can I go back up here? Transfer. This right here. Notice that all the data that you send to your machines in the cloud inbound. Notice it says all data in is free. Amazon is like, we will suck all your data into our data center all day long. Because why? They know it, number one, commits you to Amazon even more, but they know also that you're going to be paying for the storage. So they're like, hey, you know what? Transfer in is absolutely free all the time. Your first gigabyte out of data transfer is also free for all of your instances. However, if you start transferring beyond that, so 2 and all the way up to 10 terabytes out per month, you're going to be charged 12 cents, at least, again, out of Ireland, 12 cents per gigabyte, up to 10 terabytes of data above the free. Are you getting all this, right? So next 40 terabytes, next 100 terabytes, and then so they're like, you know what? If you get into next to like half petabyte of data, just give us a call. You're obviously a high volume user, and we want to talk to you about getting better rates than what we even have here on the site. So putting all this together, the view of other service pricing, know that there is more than just paying for the machine itself, unless you literally want to run a machine on ephemeral storage and never send anything out of it. Then you can just look at the EC2 pricing, but I want to make sure that you know that there is a bigger scope, and we will come back to the pricing as we discuss each one of the other services that we just saw there. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing. Wait a second. No, this has not been completely informative, but I would like to thank you for viewing. I totally forgot. I've been staring at it as I said that last thing. I was like, wait a second. I never even talked about marketplace pricing. Thankfully, piece of cake concept. Let me show it to you. When you go in to create an instance, one of the options that it will give you, it says, okay, what kind of wizard? And we've got our, default Amazon instances right here. But over on the right-hand side, there's this tab called the AWS Marketplace. And what this is people who have created AMI, images for you to use, coming preloaded with software, sometimes their own software that they've written. A lot of big companies have started putting their own software available from up here. So what they will do is, and what Amazon allows them to do, is essentially peddle their wares, peddle their images to you for a hourly charge in addition to the hourly charge that Amazon is charging. So let's just say, remember I was saying asterisk. Asterisk is a voice over IP server, and I can hit that, and it looks like right there we've got somebody, it looks like Jumpbox is the vendor who has created an asterisk telephone or telephony system provided by Jumpbox, and they're saying, okay, so this is going to cost you 3 to 7 cents for using our image. It's a pre-compiled, pre-set up voice over IP system in addition to the AWS usage fee. So if you wanted that, you can see, instance charges and all that, total on top. So they show software and then EC2 billing on top of that. To use this kind of instance. But I mean, this marketplace, you can look at the categories. Let's just look at monitoring. You can see all these different monitoring vendors, cloud ability, and sometimes people aren't even selling an instance. They're just saying, hey, it's $49 a month to run this software as a service. So, excuse me, it's not hourly or anything like that. So you can just look through this marketplace. So if there's something that you might be looking at building yourself and you're like, man, it's going to take my team days or weeks to figure this out and compile this, you might look at the marketplace and say, hey, has somebody already done something for me? Has somebody already created, for instance, sales logic that they can already have an instance ready to run in the cloud where I don't have to spend the time doing that? That's what the marketplace is there for. Okay, now I can tell you, I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.